when you're wearing sunglasses indoors, you're dark adapting your eye. You're making your eye more sensitive to light so that when you do go outside or when you do take your glasses off or when you do try to do something where there's more lighting, it's actually going to make it more painful for you. So I strongly discourage the use of sunglasses indoors.
Welcome to the Migraine Again podcast, helping you eat, breathe, survive, thrive, and engage better despite migraine. If you or someone you know struggles with migraine often, join us for today's insightful conversation. Now here's your host, founder and managing editor of migraine-again.com and co-host of the Migraine World Summit, Paula Dumas.
Do lights bother you or cause you pain? Fluorescent, flickering, LED, computer screens, and headlights coming at you at night? Many of these things can be incredibly irritating and capable of triggering migraine attacks. Ironically, the same light that makes it possible for us to work and live indoors and drive at night can also magnify the pain of a migraine. Some days your eyelids are just not thick enough. Now, short of living in the dark, how can you soothe your light-sensitive eyes? Our guest today has studied the science behind migraine light sensitivity and developed a solution that we'll share with you next.
Support for Migraine Again and today's podcast is brought to you by SpeakYourMigraine.com. Developed by Amgen and Novartis, SpeakYourMigraine.com gives people with migraine a voice, combining facts and shared experiences to break stigmas and paint a clearer picture of migraine. You're listening to the Migraine Again podcast. For show notes and resources from this episode, check out our podcast page on migraineagain.com. And now, once again, here's your host, Paula Dumas.
Welcome back. We're talking about light sensitivity and migraine today. Our guest, Dr. Bradley Katz, is a world-leading specialist in neuro-ophthalmology. Dr. Katz evaluates patients with diseases, including migraine, that affect the optic nerve, eye movements, and vision. He's done extensive research into light sensitivity, known as photophobia, and related neurological conditions such as migraine and eyelid spasms. That led to the development of a new type of eyewear called SpectraShield FL41 lenses. These glasses are a rose-colored light filter that are useful for patients with migraine and other light-sensitive conditions. And Dr. Katz, welcome to the Migraine Again podcast.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, we're so glad you're here. This is something that is so common for people with migraine. And once they hear about it, they say, yeah, I am sensitive to light. So I'm really excited to talk with you about this. Which comes first? Is it the light sensitivity or the migraine?
So it can go either way. You know, almost everybody that gets migraines will tell you that they're light sensitive during a migraine attack. But then some people will also say that certain kinds of light can set off a migraine. And then there are other people that are chronically light sensitive, you know, even when they don't have a headache. So it's sort of a chicken and an egg, I'd say.
So light sensitivity is a common symptom for people with migraine. How is photophobia actually involved in the 4 phases of a migraine attack?
You know, really, it's different from person to person. And in some people, it can be the thing that triggers them, and in some people, it's just something that develops, you know, once the headache gets going. It's such a common symptom in patients with migraine that I think it's very hard to separate it out and say that, you know, this is specifically photophobia and this is strictly migraine. They play off each other. They're so interconnected that I think it's not possible to pull them apart.
So can light sensitivity continue between attacks?
Yes, there's actually a term for this. It's called interictal photophobia, and that means that that you have light sensitivity even when you're not having a headache. And there definitely is a subset of patients like that. And that's, you know, for whom the SpectraShield FL41 can be really helpful, because these are people who, you know, are light sensitive, you know, all the time, not just when they have a headache.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. So, Dr. Katz, what kinds of light are most irritating or painful to people with migraine?
In my experience, it's been fluorescent lights seem to be the biggest trigger, and a close second would be LED lighting, and then also some of the gas discharge lamps that you see in big box stores like Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or someplace like that. Mm-hmm. And I think, the funny thing is that these same people don't have any trouble with outdoor light. And so, it's so much brighter when you go outside on a sunny day compared to being inside, like in a school or in a workplace that's lit by fluorescent lighting. So that tells us that it's not the intensity of the light that's really that critical. It's the wavelength of the light. So the colors that are within the light that seem to be irritating to people with migraine and other light-sensitive conditions. And I think the reason for that is that our eyes have evolved to work under the sun, and the sun has a very smooth emittance of different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Whereas, and incandescent light bulbs are the same way. Because it's a burning filament, incandescent bulbs tend to be less bothersome to people because it's almost like, it's like a mini sun almost. Whereas fluorescent lights, LED lights, other artificial lights like that, non-incandescent lights, are very spiky in terms of emitting very strongly at some wavelengths and then not emitting at all at other wavelengths. And as our research gets deeper and we learn more about how the eye works and how light sensitivity pathways are actually formed within the brain, I think it's turning out that there's certain wavelengths of light that are more bothersome than others, and that's why these indoor, artificial, non-incandescent light sources seem to bug people.
I actually have a fantasy of sorts, which is that I can walk into a big box retailer and when the lights get bothersome, that I could just pull out a BB gun and shoot them out.
Okay.
Because I have discovered that is the most irritating thing. It actually shortens my stay in those stores. And if retailers were smart, they would do something about that and change the light source. But we didn't always light our stores the way we do now. And when we come back, we'll talk about the evolution of lighting and how it affects our health.
Just a quick thanks to Amgen and Novartis, the makers of SpeakYourMigraine.com. Go to SpeakYourMigraine.com on your computer, tablet, or smartphone to take the Migraine Impact Assessment Test so you can understand how much of an impact migraine has on your life. Hey, we'd like to hear about your life with migraine and offer some help and encouragement if we can. If you've got a question about migraine, we'll do our best to answer it and might even include it on one of our upcoming podcasts. If you'd like to submit a question, just go to our website, migraineagain.com/question.
And we're back with neuro-ophthalmologist Dr. Bradley Katz talking about light and migraine. And Dr. Katz, we didn't always light our stores the same way, did we?
Right. I think before that, we used natural sunlight, and then more recently incandescent, lighting like regular old light bulbs. But fluorescent lights, they last longer, they're much more efficient, they use less electricity, they produce less heat. And I think that's also true of the lights that they use like in the big box stores. They're cheaper to run, and it's hard to make an argument against that. There are definitely people, that those lights are very irritating, and so. But I don't see the big box stores changing their behavior just because these lights are so much less expensive to run and maintain. And so I think therefore for people for whom that's a problem, you have to look for a personalized optical solution. And that's why we came up with the SpectraShield FL41 tint that we use because it does seem to block out those wavelengths of light that seem to be irritating, and it just makes it easier to be in a place like that.
So fluorescent has a little bit of a flicker to it, and doesn't it also have a little bit of a blue tone to it?
Right, and I actually think that it is the wavelengths that are in the blue part of the spectrum that are particularly irritating, so I think you're spot on there. And then the flickering thing, that's gotten so much better than it used to be like 20 or 30 years ago. So fluorescent light technology, I think they've done a good job of getting rid of the flickering, but they really haven't come up with a way to get around the blue light emittance, and I think that's what's so irritating.
For people who are irritated by computer screens or the white part, the white light that comes out of a computer screen, there are also some filters that you can put onto your browser, I believe, and onto your phone to reduce that kind of blue light and make it more of a golden or a rose-colored, very similar to what your glasses do for people who are exposed to that elsewhere, correct?
That's correct. That's another good example of an artificial non-incandescent light source where there's a lot of emission in the blue part of the spectrum. And it's, not only bad for people with migraines, but that light also can mess up your body's normal day-night rhythm. So your body has a natural 24-hour cycle. It wants to sleep for a certain amount of time. It wants to eat at certain times. And when you're exposing your eyes to that blue light, like especially late in the evening, like right before you're trying to go to bed, you're giving your body this message that it's time to be awake and it's not time to go to sleep. And so I think that we're finding out that there are other health problems associated with the blue light from computer screens, phone screens that go beyond migraine and light sensitivity. You're correct. There are some apps that are specifically designed to lessen the amount of blue emission that the phone emits, and then there are also filters like that you can buy to actually put over your computer screen to do this, to have the same effect. The thing I like about wearing glasses is it doesn't matter which computer you're using or whose computer you're using or which phone you're using. The glasses kind of take care of it no matter what light source you're being exposed to, rather than having to adapt every single screen that you use.
They do, and they're a lifesaver when you go out in public and you're just trying to get your grocery shopping done or pick up some stuff at the hardware store or, stock up on toilet paper and or whatever you need. You can actually survive in those environments by wearing the glasses.
Yes, for some people, the change can be really dramatic. Like some people are like having trouble going to school, having trouble going to work, struggling to go shopping, like you said, and other, participate in family activities. And so it can really be life-changing for some people to have them have a way to mitigate their light sensitivity.
Yeah, I'll share a personal anecdote where I was taking a course that was every Tuesday. And it was approximately 3 hours long in a closed room without great ventilation. And there were oftentimes presentations up on a very bright white screen. And, of course, we had textbooks in front of us, and I was looking up, looking down, looking up, looking down, and the entire room was lit with fluorescence, terrible circulation, the natural sense of people's cologne and perfume kind of permeating the room. And every day, and I only took the course 1 day a week, I would have a migraine attack that day.
Oh, my.
And then I started wearing the migraine glasses. I was going to have to drop out of the course. I started wearing the glasses, and I was able to continue and finish the course. So it can be life-changing. It can allow you to do the things that you really want and need to do that are out in public in spaces and places that you don't control. So it's pretty liberating.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So what about flickering lights or headlights? Why do those cause problems for people with migraine?
The flickering lights, I'm really, I honestly don't have a good answer for that. With headlights, I think it's the blue light situation again, especially some of these xenon arc lamps that people have in their cars sometimes. The lights from oncoming headlights can really be irritating to people, and I think it's that blue light emission. It's not the intensity, again, it's the wavelength.
Mm-hmm. And many people who are listening might relate to, driving down a tree-lined street on a sunny day and the kind of strobe-like effect that creates.
Yes.
Yeah. So these glasses don't necessarily address that situation. They address the color of the light and the wavelength of the light. Is that right?
That's right. But, that is a great point. Especially this time of year, and it happens again in the spring, the angle of the sun coming through trees as you're going down a street can be particularly irritating to people. And for reasons that I don't completely understand, the tinted lenses can can help with that effect too. Other people have movement sensitivity. Some people with migraine will say, like when they're walking down an aisle in a grocery store, just seeing the things moving past them in their peripheral vision kind of makes them sick and dizzy. And so that sort of motion-induced migraine or motion-induced, discomfort seems also to be improved by wearing specially tinted lenses.
Interesting. Do movies or 3D movies or just the kind of rapid-fire editing that is done in a lot of television and movie programs today affect people who have light sensitivity as well?
I think it can. I don't hear about that as much as I do hear about the problems that, you were talking about earlier, like shopping and going to class, going to school, going to work. So I think for whatever reason, movies tend to be less of a problem for people than the other activities.
So the temptation that many people have is to retreat and not go out to these places because they find them so irritating. And as we've talked about, glasses can help them, be able to go out into the general public where they can't control the light source. Aside from blocking out the light completely, are there any other strategies that people with migraine use to manage their light sensitivity?
Some people have turned to contact lenses. Our company actually spent a few years trying to develop a contact lens solution that's similar to the SpectraShield FL41 spectacle solution. So that can be helpful. But yeah, short of like shooting out the lights with a BB gun, which I don't recommend for you or your listeners.
Bad idea.
It's a bad idea. Yeah, there's really it's very. I mean, the other thing that you can do is just awareness. If your employer or your teacher or your family member or your coworker isn't aware of how light sensitivity works and how it's not the intensity of the light, it's the wavelength content of the light that's irritating. Because to the layperson, it doesn't make any sense that you can go outside and not have any problem, and yet come inside and then the fluorescent lights in a workplace, cause you to be sick and go home with a migraine. So I think it's just and sometimes under those circumstances, your employer or your teacher or your coworker or your family member might be willing to change the lighting situation where you work or where you go to school or at home to make things more comfortable for you. But like when you're going out in public to a place like a grocery store or something, I don't think you're going to make much headway with the manager of your grocery store or something like that, trying to convince them to change their lighting.
Right. And for the record, I don't own a BB gun and never have.
Excellent.
But I have been in offices where people have unscrewed the fluorescent light bulbs.
Sure.
And then substituted desk lamps instead. And they didn't make a fuss. They didn't say, I need workplace accommodations because I have migraine. They simply took matters into their own hands, stood on top of their desk, and fixed the lights over their cubicle so that they would be less affected by it in the job that they needed to hold on to. Is there any harm in frequently retreating to a dark room, as we're often tempted to do?
I don't think there's any harm in it. I just think it's unfortunate, because if that's preventing you from going to school or going to work or participating in a family event or something, or I think that's really sad. So it doesn't hurt anything by itself, except I think that if you do that more and more, like gradually you're withdrawing from the rest of the world, and I think just psychologically that's probably not a good thing to do. And again, that's another reason that we, kind of came up with this solution that allows you to go to work or allows you to go to school or allows you to participate in family activities, so you don't have to withdraw, because I think you kind of can become a hermit, otherwise, and I think that kind of can lead to depression, which has a very strong association with migraine, and then it just becomes a vicious cycle. So I don't think there's any harm in occasionally retreating, but I definitely wouldn't make it a life choice if you can avoid it. The one thing that I would say, though, is I do have some patients who wear sunglasses indoors, and I would strongly discourage anybody from doing that. The reason is that you're dark adapting your eyes right? So, like, if you think about what it's like to go to a movie, like a matinee, and then when the movie's over, to go back outside into the bright afternoon sun, like, it's really painful, even for people who don't have migraines. So when you're wearing sunglasses indoors, you're dark adapting your eye. You're making your eye more sensitive to light, so that when you do go outside, or when you do take your glasses off, or when you do try to do something where there's more lighting, it's actually going to make it more painful for you. So I strongly discourage the use of sunglasses indoors. Absolutely fine to use the darkest sunglasses you can buy outdoors, but I would never recommend people wear sunglasses indoors.
Dr. Katz, we've talked about light sources in the office. If you have a fluorescent light, you can unscrew it, let maintenance know what you're doing. But if you're in your own home, are there some subtle changes that we can make in the light sources in our own home that will ease our migraine experience?
I think so. For most people, using the good old-fashioned incandescent, 40, 60, 80-watt light bulbs, that tends to be more comfortable. Unfortunately, it's not very energy efficient. So if you're contemplating changing to an artificial light source like a compact fluorescent or an LED, what I would encourage people to do is to go to the hardware store and see if you can't try out some of the light bulbs. Maybe they have a display where some of these different bulbs are being used. Or maybe even taking one home and trying it out, because I think everybody is different. I think some sorts of artificial non-incandescent lights might be just fine for one migraine sufferer, but for another one it might be really painful. So the rule of thumb is incandescent is going to be best, but if you're going to switch to a non-incandescent source, just be sure to try it out on yourself before you spend hundreds of dollars changing all the lights in your house.
Mm-hmm. And dimmer switches are an awesome and pretty low-cost investment if you own your home.
That's a great point, and that's a great way to save energy, too.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice, because I think that we spend too long in the dark, and part of our social and our mental health is having that opportunity to engage with people.
Exactly.
And so what I love about the migraine glasses is that it can be very liberating to allow people to kind of live the fullest life that they want to live out in public. So when we return, we're going to talk some more about the research behind these and what makes them different from other kinds of glasses.
A quick thanks to our advertisers, Amgen and Novartis, who have developed the SpeakYourMigraine.com website, where you can read stories, gather tools and resources to help change the migraine conversation. It's time to turn private pain into collective change at SpeakYourMigraine.com. This is the Migraine Again podcast, encouraging and empowering you in your battle against migraine because you deserve to feel better. You can hear this conversation again or share it with someone who might like to hear it by going to migraine-again.com. Now, once again, here's Paula.
And we're back with Dr. Bradley Katz talking about light sensitivity and migraine. Dr. Katz, what benefits does the research show from the use of migraine glasses?
Here at the University of Utah in the Moran Eye Center, we actually did a study with a related condition called benign essential blepharospasm, which is a real mouthful, but it's a condition that where people have it's a movement disorder. It's in the same spectrum of disorders as Parkinson's disease, except these people have uncontrollable blinking and squeezing of their eyelids. It can even be difficult for them to open their eyes. And it's an extremely disabling condition. The primary treatment is Botox, botulinum toxin injections around the eyes to weaken the muscles that close the eyes to allow these people to keep their eyes open and not be squeezing and blinking all the time. But these people are universally light sensitive in a very similar fashion to patients with migraine. And we actually did some research here with FL41 showing that not only did it improve the light sensitivity in those patients, but it also reduced the frequency of their squeezing and the intensity of their squeezing. And so, at least in that condition, we definitely have some very good, randomized prospective research showing that that FL41 is helpful for that condition. With FL41 and migraine, there was originally a study done in Birmingham, England, in an orphanage with kids with migraine, showing that it reduced the frequency and severity of their headaches. Mm-hmm. And then more recently, we've actually developed we're trying to come up with a new way to block the wavelengths of light that are irritating to people with migraine without causing so much color distortion. Because the FL41, although it is very effective, it does have sort of a rose-colored tint to it, and it makes everything you're looking at kind of rose-colored. So we've come up with
a bad thing?
No, I think looking at the world through rose-colored glasses is absolutely a good thing. Mm-hmm. But not everybody agrees, and so we've been trying to advance the technology, thinking that maybe we can using thin film technology instead of tint technology, maybe make the amount of blocking at those blue wavelengths even better. So I think it's 2 summers ago now, we published some research in the Journal of Clinical Neurosciences showing that this new technology that we've developed can definitely help people with migraine. And we're actually continuing that work. We have an ongoing clinical study that's based here at Utah, but also we have sites at the Mayo Clinics in Scottsdale, Arizona, mm-hmm. at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, at Northwell Health on Long Island. We're trying to show that it's specifically helpful for people with chronic migraine.
Great. Well, let us know how that research comes out.
Absolutely.
For someone who's invested a lot in a nice pair of polarized sunglasses for the days that they're outdoors, particularly during the summer when the sun is so bright, how is an FL41 tint any different from polarized glasses in the way the migraine brain receives it?
I'd say for outdoor use, they're probably pretty equivalent. The downside of polarized glasses is it does make things pretty dark, so they're absolutely unfit for use indoors. We do have some patients, the laboratory that we use where we get our glasses made up for our customers, we can actually combine FL41 and a polarization filter mm-hmm. in the same glasses, and people that have an especially severe, light sensitivity find that to be a helpful combination.
I'll bet you also recommend that people get glasses that fit their faces pretty closely.
That is a great point. It's not just the lenses that are important, it's the frame. Because most eyeglasses frames, if you hold them on their side, you'll see they're pretty square. Mm-hmm. And that allows for a lot of light leakage from above, below, and at the sides. And for people with bad light sensitivity, that can be really annoying. So if you get a frame that fits the form of your face a little better, has a little bit more of a curved look to it, that can really be helpful. And then also there are some companies that make frames that have like this little gasket on the inside of the glasses. They're specifically made for people who ride motorcycles mm-hmm. to keep the wind out of their eyes. Mm. But it can have the same beneficial effect by keeping the light out. And Axon actually sells some of those frames, with our lenses, for that exact reason, that the frame shape can be so important.
Well, let's get to the point that is burning on everyone's mind, which is Bono. He wears rose-colored glasses.
He does, and he also wears kind of a curved, sporty frame. And so I've often wondered if he has either migraine or another light-sensitive condition. I actually don't know the answer, but 6% of men have migraine, so there's a 6% chance that he has migraine, I guess.
And he's an incredibly talented musician, so
absolutely.
There's that. Are clip-on versions available?
They are, but they tend to be really fussy. What we do offer through our website, and if your optical shop handles them, is to have an FL41 indoor, glasses, and then a darker FL41 or gray or polarized clip-on to go on the outside. So I don't mm-hmm. recommend trying to clip on glasses onto your existing glasses. I would start mm-hmm. with something that has FL41 tint, and then if you want, you could clip on something onto the outside. The downside is that you're back to more of a square frame configuration, and you're letting light leak in from the sides. And so I think you're better off having separate pairs of glasses for indoor and outdoor use, personally.
And for the fashionistas in the audience who have a particular designer that they like, do you also add lenses to those frames?
Yeah, absolutely. You can send in your own frames, and we can add lenses to them, no problem.
We want to look good even if we don't feel that great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Katz, anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think you've covered it exceptionally well. Almost all patients with migraine have some trouble with light sensitivity, whether it's during a headache or before a headache or between headaches. But no one's ever tried to address that facet of the disease, and so I'm really glad that we're finally talking about it and doing something about it.
We are, definitely. Well, thank you, Dr. Katz, for your innovations that have made life easier and potentially make migraine attacks less frequent for those of us with migraine. So we appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks so much.
And the University of Utah Moran Eye Center, where Dr. Katz practices, is a center of excellence in neuro-ophthalmology. So much so that both Dr. Katz and his colleague, American Headache Society President Dr. Kathleen Digray, have been featured on the Migraine World Summit. And if you're really interested in this topic, I'd invite you to check out both of their in-depth interview talks on the migraineworldsummit.com. So now that you know why that light is bothering you, I'd also encourage you to consider whether migraine glasses might help you keep doing everything you love and need to do. So check it out. And that's it for today's show. I'm Paula Dumas, wishing you all a pain-free day.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. We hope that you feel encouraged and empowered in your battle against migraine, because you deserve better. If you want to suffer less and live more despite migraine, be sure to check out all the great resources on migraine-again.com. Follow us on your favorite social network and subscribe to our free newsletter and this podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, tell a friend about it, and be sure and join us again next time on the Migraine Again podcast. You'll be glad you did.